I still remember the smell of lavender that morning, the way the sunlight spilled across the kitchen tiles, the sound of birds outside my little suburban window, and the silence that had grown between me and my son. Silence so heavy, it was louder than any argument we had ever had. My name is Margaret Ellis, and for 72 years I lived a life of quiet sacrifice. I raised my son Daniel alone after his father walked out on us when he was barely 5. I worked 2 jobs, secretary by day, waitress by night, just to keep food on the table and dreams in his eyes. I was the kind of mother who skipped new shoes so he could have them, who stayed hungry so he could eat. But sometimes, love is not remembered the way you hope it will be. That morning, Daniel didn't look me in the eyes. He fiddled with his car keys, tapping them against his palm as though they weighed heavier than lead. "Mom," he finally said, his voice too calm, too rehearsed, "you can't keep living alone like this. You need care. Professional care." I laughed softly, though there was nothing funny in his words. Care? Daniel, I may be old, but I'm not broken. I can cook, I can clean, I can manage just fine. But his jaw tightened, and the words came out like a verdict, "I've made arrangements. You'll be staying at Maplewood Nursing Home starting today." My heart stopped. The world tilted, my breath caught, and the lavender smell turned sour in my nose. "Today?" I whispered. "Without even asking me?" He finally met my eyes, and what I saw there wasn't cruelty. It was worse, it was detachment. I was no longer his mother. I was a burden. "Mom, it's for the best," he said. "I can't keep checking in every day. I have my own family, my own responsibilities. You'll be safer there. Happier even. Safer. Happier." As if happiness could be rented by the month in a sterile white room that smelled of bleach and loneliness. He drove me there in silence. I watched the houses blur by, each one a memory, my neighbor's garden where I once borrowed sugar, the school Daniel used to run out of with a smile bigger than the sun, the bakery where I bought his favorite blueberry muffins. I wanted to scream, to beg him to turn back, but my pride sat like a stone in my throat. When we arrived, the building loomed ahead, Maplewood Nursing Home. Red bricks, 2 clean windows, a garden trimmed within an inch of its life. It looked less like a home and more like a hospital that had given up on hope. Daniel carried my single suitcase, set it by the reception desk, and hugged me with arms that felt like a stranger's. "I'll visit when I can," he said. I wanted to tell him that when I can meant never. That once a child places a parent in such a place, guilt becomes their only visitor. But I stayed silent. I watched him leave, his car disappearing into the horizon, and with it, the last illusion that I mattered to him. The first night in Maplewood was the hardest. They gave me a room that smelled faintly of disinfectant and old perfume, a bed too stiff, and a window that looked out onto the parking lot. My roommate, Evelyn, was a woman in her 80s with sharp eyes dulled by Alzheimer's. She spoke to shadows, called me Dorothy, and cried herself to sleep. In the hallways, I saw faces etched with stories, men and women who had built families, fought wars, worked in factories, and loved deeply, only to be tucked away here, forgotten by the very people they had once sacrificed everything for. Their eyes told me my future, days blending into nights, waiting for visitors who never came. Every sound was magnified, the squeak of nurses' shoes, the distant hum of television sets, the coughs of old men down the hall. It was a place where time moved slowly, but life moved nowhere. That night, as I lay on the stiff mattress staring at the ceiling, tears pooled in my eyes. For the first time in my life, I felt truly discarded, like an old coat left at the back of a closet. I whispered into the darkness, "Is this all I am now? A burden to be managed? A problem to be solved?" The silence that answered was deafening. But beneath the heartbreak, a spark lit inside me. It was faint, almost invisible, but it was there. A whisper of defiance. A refusal to fade quietly into the background. Days passed. Daniel didn't call. He didn't visit. My world shrank to scheduled meals, bland and tasteless, group activities designed to distract us from our loneliness, and endless hours of silence. But I began to notice things others didn't. Maplewood had a library tucked away on the second floor, forgotten by most residents. Dust-covered shelves lined with business journals, biographies, and old newspapers. When the loneliness became unbearable, I escaped there. I read stories of entrepreneurs who started with nothing, of leaders who built empires from scratch, of women who refused to let their age define their worth. Their words lit something inside me. I remembered the years I had spent balancing bills, stretching pennies into meals, negotiating with landlords, managing chaos with nothing but grit. I realized, hadn't I been a CEO already? The CEO of survival, the CEO of sacrifice? I may not have had a company, but I had built a life from scraps, and that required skills no one had ever given me credit for. And slowly, a thought took root. A dangerous thought. What if my story wasn't over yet? One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the nursing home walls gold, I sat in the library flipping through a business magazine from the 90s. An article headline jumped out at me: "The future belongs to those who refuse to quit." I laughed through tears. Refuse to quit. That was me. That had always been me. I whispered to myself, Daniel thinks I am finished. But he has no idea who I really am. My heart ached, but my hands trembled with something I hadn't felt in years: purpose. I didn't know how, or when, but I swore to myself in that moment, I would rise again. Not just to prove him wrong, but to prove to myself that a mother, a woman, a grandmother, still had power. And one day, he would see. One day, the son who abandoned me would stand before me not as my caretaker, but as my subordinate. And that day would be the beginning of a story he could never erase. Morning light at Maplewood was deceptive. The windows opened onto perfectly trimmed gardens, with tulips lined in neat rows and benches placed as though anyone actually sat there. But beauty, I quickly learned, was a mask. Behind those flowers were souls wilting faster than any plant. Each day followed a rhythm too predictable to be called life: breakfast at 7, medications at 9, activities at 11, lunch at noon, and endless, dragging afternoons where the television blared game shows no one really watched. It was a machine, and we were its parts, fed, monitored, kept alive, but rarely, truly living. I began to see the quiet tragedies around me. Mrs. Carter, who once sang opera on stages in Vienna, now whispered arias to herself in the corner of the lounge. Mr. Rodriguez, a retired engineer who helped design bridges in Spain, now stared at puzzles he never finished. Evelyn, my roommate, sometimes woke screaming in the night for children who never came. And me? I was Margaret Ellis, mother of a son who placed me here with all the tenderness of someone discarding an unwanted gift. But pain has a way of sharpening your vision. I noticed not everyone accepted their fate. A small group of residents, 3 women and 1 man, met in the library most evenings. Their voices carried whispers of plans, ideas, dreams. One evening, curiosity tugged me toward them. Another lost soul, a woman with striking silver hair, asked, offering me a chair. Her name was Gloria. She had once been a professor of economics at Cambridge. Beside her sat Samuel, a tall, stooped man who had been a banker in London. The others, Clara and James, were retired shop owners from Manchester. They weren't playing cards. They were planning. Gloria leaned in and said, "We've spent our lives building families, businesses, and communities. And what happens? We're tossed aside. But what if, just what if, we built something again? Something that proves we're not finished yet?" Her words electrified me. For months, I had swallowed the belief that my best days were behind me. But here, in this dusty library, among forgotten minds, the possibility of rebirth stirred. What could we possibly build here? I asked, my voice half skeptical, half hopeful. Gloria's eyes glimmered. A business. A venture. Something that reminds the world we're still relevant. Age does not erase talent, it refines it. I laughed bitterly. Who would take us seriously? We're prisoners in a nursing home. Then we make them take us seriously, Samuel said firmly. My son thinks I'm worthless. I'll prove him wrong. We all will. That night, I lay awake in bed, Evelyn mumbling in her dreams beside me, and thought about their words. A business. A venture. It sounded absurd. Yet, it also sounded like hope. The next day, I found myself in the library again. Gloria handed me a notebook. Write down your skills, she said. I stared at the blank page, pen heavy in my hand. Skills? What skills did I have? I wasn't a professor, or a banker, or even a shop owner. I had been a secretary and a waitress. But then I thought deeper. I had balanced household budgets with pennies, negotiated with landlords, managed schedules, and solved crises daily. I had raised a child alone. That required planning, resilience, communication, sacrifice. Weren't those skills too? Slowly, I wrote. Budget management. People skills. Negotiation. Patience under stress. Organization. Problem solving. When I handed the list back, Gloria smiled. You're richer than you think. Weeks passed, and the library group, as we called ourselves, became the beating heart of Maplewood. We brainstormed. We dreamed. Some ideas were wild: an online shop selling handmade crafts, a consultancy service for young entrepreneurs, a book club with paid memberships. But one evening, as I watched Evelyn struggle to write a simple letter to her daughter, an idea struck me. What if we built something for people like us? I suggested. A platform where seniors can share their experiences, skills, even services, mentorship, tutoring, writing, consulting. A network that connects generations instead of dividing them. The room went silent. Then Gloria's eyes lit up. A marketplace of wisdom, she whispered. Brilliant. We called it Golden Bridges. The name symbolized what we wanted, to bridge the gap between generations with the gold of our wisdom. Of course, dreaming was easy. Building was not. We had no computers, no funding, no freedom to leave Maplewood without permission. But limitations became fuel. Samuel's son had left an old laptop during a rare visit. Gloria's granddaughter brought us a Wi-Fi hotspot. I convinced the head nurse to let me use the office printer under the excuse of writing therapy. At night, we gathered in the library, typing, planning, designing. Gloria wrote the business plan, Samuel handled finances, Clara and James organized outreach ideas. And me? I became the communicator, the voice that tied it all together, the one who saw opportunities where others saw walls. I felt alive again. Every click of the keyboard was a heartbeat. Every word on the screen was proof that my story wasn't over. But Maplewood wasn't blind. One evening, the head administrator, a stern woman named Miss Hargrove, barged into the library. What exactly is going on here? She demanded, eyeing our scattered papers and glowing laptop screens. We're building something, I said calmly, though my pulse raced. This is a nursing home, not a business center, she snapped. Your families entrusted us with your care, not your enterprises. Shut this down immediately. Her words cut deep. Shut this down. As if our minds, our ambitions, were dangerous. But I looked her in the eye and said words I didn't know I had the courage to speak. You can lock our bodies in here, Ms. Hargrove, but you cannot cage our purpose. We are not finished yet. The others nodded, fire in their eyes. Ms. Hargrove left with a scowl, but I knew she underestimated us. That was her mistake. Late one night, as I sat in bed scribbling notes, Evelyn turned to me, her confusion briefly lifting. "Why do you work so hard, Dorothy?" she asked, using the wrong name again. I smiled softly. "Because I want to show my son that he was wrong. That I was never a burden. That I still matter." Her eyes watered. "Then do it. For all of us." The first test of Golden Bridges was small. We posted an ad online offering mentorship sessions, business advice from Samuel, tutoring in economics from Gloria, and life coaching from me. We expected silence. But within days, emails trickled in. A young startup founder wanted Samuel's input. A college student requested Gloria's tutoring. A single mother asked me for guidance balancing work and family. We were stunned. People wanted us. Needed us. Each session lit a fire in us. For the first time in years, we weren't relics. We were relevant. Still, doubt haunted me at night. Would this ever grow into something big? Would it ever be enough to prove to Daniel that he had thrown away more than just his mother, he had thrown away a force? I didn't know. But for the first time since that lavender-scented morning, I had hope. Hope and a plan. Because the day would come when my son would see me not as his mother sitting quietly in a nursing home, but as the woman who had risen from ashes to build something extraordinary. And on that day, he would finally realize the truth. The mother he abandoned was destined to become the boss he never expected. The first time a stranger paid me for advice, I cried. It wasn't much, $20, wired into a shared account Samuel managed, but it meant something more powerful than money. It meant worth. It meant my voice carried value again. Golden Bridges was no longer just an idea scribbled in notebooks. It was alive. Every week, we refined the platform. Gloria polished our mission statement, connecting wisdom with need. Samuel tracked every cent, promising that even small streams could grow into a river. Clara and James spread the word through their grandchildren, who whispered about us in college dorms and coffee shops. And me? I became the storyteller. I wrote posts, crafted emails, and spoke to clients with the steady calm of someone who had endured storms. I poured my pain into words, and people listened. But success never comes without resistance. One morning, Ms. Hargrove summoned me to her office. Her desk was spotless, her expression colder than ice. "Mrs. Ellis," she began, "your little project is becoming a distraction. Staff report residents sneaking out of activities, staying up past hours, ignoring schedules. This must end." I folded my hands, steadying my voice. "What's ending here, Ms. Hargrove, is the belief that our lives belong to your timetables. We are not children. We are not property. We are still capable of contributing to the world." Her lips thinned. "And what happens when your fantasy collapses? When someone gets hurt? You'll drag this facility into scandal." I met her gaze. No scandal is worse than burying the living while they're still breathing. For a moment, I thought she would strike me. Instead, she hissed, "Enjoy your rebellion while it lasts." But her threat only fueled us. Within months, Golden Bridges expanded. Students sought mentorship. Small businesses reached out for advice. Even young parents subscribed to our life lesson sessions, where we taught budgeting, resilience, and survival in a tough world. We charged modestly, but demand grew fast. Samuel reported one evening, "We've cleared $5,000. Enough to invest in a proper website." The library erupted in cheers. For once, the walls of Maplewood echoed not with silence but with purpose. Still, late at night, doubt crept in. Would Daniel ever see this? Would he care? One sleepless night, I whispered into the darkness, "I am more than the woman you abandoned, son. One day, you'll see." The turning point came when a local journalist stumbled across our website. Curious, she reached out. A week later, an article appeared in the Manchester Chronicle. Elders of Maplewood Nursing Home launch innovative business platform, proving age is just a number. The story went viral. Emails flooded in. News crews showed up at Maplewood's gates. The world was hungry for hope, for proof that dignity didn't have an expiration date. Suddenly, our small venture was no longer hidden in the shadows. We were featured on television. My face, lined with wrinkles, appeared on screens across Britain. They called me the grandmother CEO. Clients poured in. Partnerships formed. A tech startup offered to help us build a sleek platform in exchange for mentorship sessions. We accepted. Our venture was no longer a dream, it was a company. Golden Bridges Incorporated was born. Yet success brought tension. The nursing home, embarrassed by the media attention, tried to shut us down again. Ms. Hargrove barked orders, citing policy violations. But this time, the press was on our side. When she tried to confiscate the laptop, cameras captured it. Public outrage followed. Under pressure, Maplewood's board announced, "We fully support the entrepreneurial spirit of our residents." We had won. But even as victory tasted sweet, I felt a gnawing emptiness. Daniel had not called. Not once. The expansion was brutal. Meetings, planning, negotiating deals, I found myself busier than I had ever been, even in my youth. I thrived in the chaos. At 69, I was living a second life. But at night, when the noise settled, loneliness clawed at me. One evening, as I reviewed contracts, Gloria touched my hand. "Margaret, are you chasing success, or your son?" The question pierced deeper than any blade. I swallowed hard. Both. I want the world to know we matter. But more than that, I want Daniel to regret ever believing I was a burden. Gloria's eyes softened. Success built on vengeance burns out quickly. Build for yourself, not for him. Her words haunted me. But I wasn't ready to let go of the wound. Our company grew rapidly. Within 2 years, we had offices outside Maplewood, managed by volunteers and interns inspired by our story. I traveled, yes, traveled. Conferences in London, seminars in Paris. Everywhere I went, I stood as proof that broken wings could still soar. At one conference, a young woman asked me, "What drives you, Mrs. Ellis?" I smiled, though my heart ached. The belief that life does not end until it truly ends. And the refusal to let anyone else write my ending. The audience erupted in applause. But later that night, alone in my hotel room, I stared at my reflection in the mirror. My success was undeniable. Yet a hollow space remained, shaped like my son. The day fate intervened arrived quietly. I was in the Maplewood Library, now refurbished into our headquarters, reviewing a partnership deal. A knock echoed. When I looked up, my breath froze. Daniel stood at the door. Time had changed him. His once boyish charm was replaced with lines of stress. His tailored suit hung loose on a frame that had grown weary. His eyes, once full of arrogance, now carried desperation. "Mother," he said softly. For a moment, I could not speak. My heart thundered. The boy who abandoned me. The man who left me to rot. Now standing before me. I straightened my shoulders. Why are you here, Daniel? He swallowed, shame flickering across his face. I need help. The words hung heavy in the air. Help. From me. The irony was cruel, poetic, divine. He explained, stumbling through his confession. His business had collapsed. Poor decisions, debts, betrayal by partners, he was drowning. I heard about your company. About what you've built. I never imagined, his voice broke. I need a job. Or a loan. Something. For a moment, the library was silent except for the sound of my own heartbeat. The son who called me a burden now begged for the hand of the burden he abandoned. I looked at him, not with the eyes of a broken mother, but with the strength of a woman who had rebuilt herself from ashes. Do you remember the morning you left me here? I asked quietly. The lavender, the box of my belongings? Daniel's eyes filled with tears. I was selfish. Blind. I see that now. I let his words hang, savoring the reversal of fate. But revenge, I realized, was not as sweet as I imagined. It was bitter. Empty. I leaned back, folding my hands. I built golden bridges not to destroy you, Daniel, but to prove to myself that I still mattered. If you want my help, it will not be as a son to a mother. It will be as a man seeking redemption. His shoulders sagged. I'll do whatever it takes. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to hope that maybe, just maybe, this broken bridge could be rebuilt. But the power was mine now. The mother he abandoned had become the boss he would have to answer to. And destiny had finally turned full circle. Daniel's presence in the library stirred emotions I thought I had buried. Anger. Hurt. Longing. A desperate love that had been bruised but not fully extinguished. I had dreamed of this moment, his return, but not like this. Not with him broken and begging. I could still smell the lavender of that morning he abandoned me. That scent haunted me in my loneliest nights at Maplewood. And now here he was, standing under the same roof where my rebirth had begun, asking me to save him. Poetic justice. Or divine irony. Mother, he whispered again, his voice cracking. I know I don't deserve it. But please, help me. The room was heavy with silence until Gloria spoke from her corner. She had been listening quietly, her wise eyes studying both of us. Margaret, she said gently, you don't have to decide in anger. Decide in strength. Her words steadied me. I turned back to my son. You think this is about money, Daniel? No. It's about respect. About value. The very things you stripped from me when you left me here like luggage you didn't want to carry. Daniel lowered his head, shame etched into his features. I know. And I regret it every day. I was arrogant. Blind. I thought success was youth and speed. I couldn't see the wisdom sitting right in front of me. His words were raw, but pain had taught me not to be swayed easily. That night, I lay awake, torn between two voices inside me. One urged revenge, make him crawl. Let him taste the loneliness he fed you. The other whispered, forgive. Build a bridge, not a wall. I remembered Evelyn's fragile hand in mine, urging me to do it for all of us. I remembered the young mother who wrote after one of my coaching sessions, you gave me strength to keep going. I remembered every broken soul who had come to Golden Bridges for hope. What kind of leader would I be if I turned away my own son? But forgiveness did not mean forgetting. The next morning, I called Daniel into the library. The others sat with me like a council: Gloria, Samuel, Clara, and James. We had faced battles together. This was another. "Daniel," I began, my tone firm, "I will help you. But not as your mother bailing out her reckless son. You will work for Golden Bridges. You will start at the bottom, under supervision. You will rebuild your dignity through service, not shortcuts." His eyes widened, then brimmed with tears. "You'd really give me a chance?" "I'm giving you a test," I corrected. "This is not about blood. This is about trust. You lost it once. Now you must earn it back." He nodded quickly, relief washing over him. "I'll do anything." "Thank you." And so it began. Daniel joined our team, not as an executive, but as an assistant. He fetched files, answered emails, and took notes during meetings. At first, he stumbled and used to humility. He bristled when Samuel corrected him. He groaned at Clara's sharp tongue. But slowly, something changed. He began to listen. He began to learn. For the first time, he wasn't the boss of anyone, he was the student. One evening, I found him in the library, staring at the mission statement on our wall, connecting wisdom with need. "You really built this, didn't you?" he asked softly. "With these hands," I said, holding them out. "The same hands that raised you." He lowered his head. "I don't deserve you." "No," I replied gently. "But you can still honor me." Months passed, and I watched my son transform. The arrogance peeled away, replaced by humility and gratitude. He worked tirelessly, sometimes harder than the rest of us, determined to prove himself. Clients began to trust him. Even Gloria admitted, the boy has potential after all. But the true test came during a major crisis. A partnership deal nearly collapsed when a company accused us of failing to deliver promised mentorship sessions. It was a misunderstanding, emails lost, schedules mismanaged. But it threatened our reputation. Daniel stepped forward. "Let me handle this." My instinct was to say no, but I saw determination in his eyes. I allowed it. He spent days negotiating, apologizing, offering solutions. In the end, not only did he repair the relationship, but the company signed a larger contract with us. When he returned to Maplewood, exhausted but smiling, the library erupted in applause. For the first time, I looked at my son not as the boy who abandoned me, but as a man who had grown through pain. One night, after everyone else had gone, Daniel sat across from me. "Mother," he said quietly, "I used to think strength meant walking away from weakness. I thought you were weak. But you're the strongest person I know. You built an empire from a prison. And you didn't just save yourself, you saved me." Tears blurred my vision. I reached across the table, taking his hand. "Daniel, I didn't do this just for you. I did it for everyone who's been told their time is over. For every forgotten soul. But I'm glad it brought you back to me." He gripped my hand tightly. "It did. And I will never let you go again." Years later, Golden Bridges became an international movement. Offices opened across Europe, connecting retirees with businesses, students, and families in need of wisdom. We partnered with universities, corporations, even governments. But for me, the greatest success wasn't the money or the fame. It was the sight of my son introducing me at a global conference in Paris. He stood tall on the stage, his voice strong. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the woman who taught me that life doesn't end when you grow old, it begins again. The founder and CEO of Golden Bridges, my mother, Margaret Ellis. The applause thundered, echoing in my bones. I stepped forward, the spotlight warm on my wrinkled face, and spoke to thousands. We all carry scars, of abandonment, of failure, of loss. But scars are not endings. They are proof that we survived. I was left in a nursing home to fade. Instead, I rose to lead. I became the CEO of my own destiny. And if I can do it, so can you. The crowd rose to their feet, clapping, cheering, weeping. In that moment, I was not just a grandmother, not just a forgotten mother. I was a symbol. A reminder that no one, no matter their age, no matter their pain, is ever finished until they choose to stop trying. As the years rolled on, Daniel and I rebuilt our bond, not perfect, but real. He became not just my son, but my partner in building bridges. And when people asked me about my journey, I told them this truth. The son who left me in a nursing home became my employee. But more importantly, he became my student. And together, we built a world where no elder is ever discarded again. Message to the listener. If you are listening to my story today, I want you to carry this message in your heart. Life will betray you. People will abandon you. But those moments are not the end of your story, they are the beginning of your strength. Do not let anyone tell you that your time is over. Do not let anyone write your ending. Stand up. Build. Dream again. Because one day, those who doubted you will see you not as a burden, but as the boss of your own destiny. And when that day comes, forgive them. Not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace.